live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
I'm talking about playoffs. I was thinking about this before we went live. It feels good. You know, I know we talk about change in college football and how we're kind of resistant to a lot of what's happening, but I'll be honest, Trent, the fact that we're coming out of the bye week, Michigan's 4-2, you got 2 losses early on in the first half of the season, and playoffs is still a possibility. There's no divisions anymore, so hell, India is still a possibility. You know, last year before that, and the year before that, and all the years before that, Natty was off the table if you were 4-2 after 6 weeks. So, I mean, we do kind of shit on, you know, the changes and the updates. Cody, good to see you. Missed you too, brother. We do kind of shit on all the changes that are happening in college football, but this feels good, right? You still have hope halfway through the season with 2 losses. Trent, you got to be loving this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just imagine what it's going to be like when they eventually go to 64-team playoff, like college basketball, man. You could have 4 or 5 losses, and your season is still alive to win that natty.
Well, we got to draw a line somewhere.
But in all seriousness, no, I love it. Like, just for example, this Saturday, you got Nebraska and Indiana, 2 teams, 5-1, 6-0. You never hear about Nebraska and Indiana, that game, meaning playoff implications on the line. And that's exactly what we're at right now in this new day and age of college football. And I love it.
For sure. Indiana on fraud alert. Big time. Big time. I think I just think Nebraska is going to go in there and offer Curt Cignetti
I agree.
Huge piece of humble pie. He is a character, though, and you know, watching him do various interviews, I'm glad he's in the Big Ten Conference. But yeah, man, I mean, it's obviously been a rocky start to the season, and I think there's been some frustration. And when you're coming off of such a successful year, and not just last year, but really a successful 3-year stretch, Michigan fans just aren't used to losing regular season. They don't know what it's like to be the folks down in Columbus. They don't know what it's like to be a Buckeye. We're not used to losing in the regular season here up in Ann Arbor. But, you know, it's happened a couple times, and then you go into the bye week, and Michigan's going to have to retool. And you obviously hope that there's some good things that can come out of it this weekend against Illinois, which, by the way, Trent, I know that you don't really buy this, but have you seen the alternates that Illinois will be wearing this weekend? Give me your thoughts on the old school throwback uniforms we're going to get from Illinois.
Those uniforms they're pretty hideous, I think. I think they're terrible.
A hater.
I take it you're going to go buy one? Are you going to get one after you see them in person?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I like a good throwback uniform. I just don't know that I'm ever going to be okay with painting a helmet to make it look like it's leather. Like, to me, that's just kind of a corny look. I get what they're trying to do, but yeah, I mean, I'm a fan, like, more so, I think, than a lot of people in the Michigan fan base who are very traditional. They don't want any sort of change. They want the maize pants, the blue top. They just, don't ever touch the helmet, which I subscribe to that. I don't like really messing with the helmet too much, but those uniforms from Illinois, that is a bold choice. I was on the fence with it, which is why I wanted to ask you where you stand. But I mean, clearly you're not a guy who's on the cutting edge of uniform design, apparently.
Now, the only way I think it would be somewhat neat is if Michigan also went throwback and did something crazy for this game.
That's why I brought it up, Trent, because I told you, listen, I don't know how much this is talked about. I think I might have mentioned it once on the podcast before. I was flat out told I wanted to write an article about it. I can't write an article about it. I was told that I am not allowed to write an article about it, but I wasn't told that I couldn't talk about it on our shitty little podcast here, where we've got like 20 people watching right now. So there was a time where Michigan did have a throwback concept in the arsenal. And it involved the uniform and the helmet as well, where they were sort of looking into and tweaking and designing how they could paint sort of the leather throwback paint job on the helmet. And I know that they never ended up using it. It never came to fruition, but I was looking at Illinois' uniform choice for this weekend, and I thought, man, if there was ever a chance to bring something like that out, this would be the weekend, right? The old throwback leather winged helmet. We know that they've looked into it, that it was a thing that they were exploring. Any chance that we see Michigan throw on an alternate this weekend?
Like I said, I think it'd be neat, and I would love it. I don't think there's a percent chance that Michigan's going to put on a throwback 1940 style uniform. I don't think it's going to happen.
Mike says bring back the stripy shoulder. No, he says don't bring back.
Don't bring it back.
There are a lot of people that look back on that Adidas era. Do you, how much? Let me ask you, how much do you think Adidas playing a role in the Brady Hoke era and the Rich Rod era also adds to how much people hated that era? Because there are a lot of people that hated what Adidas was doing to the Michigan uniform. Yeah, Rico's got it.
Yeah, those alternates were not very good, were they? That's for sure. And I mean, it was the Adidas era. You would got to think that if it was Nike or Under Armour, I think that you would have seen much better designs.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Under Armour, they take some risks as well. But I mean, if you look at some of the old Michigan uniforms, like they had those stripes on the shoulders. Like that's what Adidas was trying to do. So it's not like they veered too far away from what Michigan had done in the past. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of, I look at what Illinois is doing, and then on the surface, I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then if Michigan were to attempt something like that, I don't know that I would be a fan of it. But I just find it interesting that was on the table in Schembechler Hall, was a helmet painted to look like the old leather winged helmet. And then when I saw obviously what Illinois was going to do, to me, it just felt like the perfect, but I'm with you, Trent. I very low probability that we see Michigan wearing an alternate for the road game in Champaign this weekend, which, it's a big game. This is a big weekend. We have talked about it a lot. Obviously, with the bye week, we've had plenty of time to sit back and digest what we saw through the first 6 weeks of the season. Think a little bit about what we want to see on the back half of the season. Trent, when you look at this game in particular, what is it exactly that you want to see from the Wolverines on Saturday? What do you need to see to have confidence in the season moving forward that they can really salvage the back half of the schedule?
For me, it's both sides of the passing game. I want to see a competent passing game from Jack Tuttle, which I do think that we'll get into this with our predictions, but I do think you're going to see a much better passing game with Jack Tuttle at the helm. And then also defensively, you got to be able to stop the pass, slow it down some. I mean, Michigan, you got Will Johnson out there, but then like we've talked about before, Jair Hill, he's had up and down games. Some games he's looked really good. And then other games, he's been a liability. Zeke Berry, he's been kind of picked on for most of the year, to be honest with you. He's had tackling issues as well. Like that stuff has got to get shored up. You had a whole week to work on it, work on fundamentals, work on your angles, and it's got to get better. This is a great game to test him too. Luke Altmaier, he averages nearly 240 yards a game. He's only thrown one interception. So this game right here will show you how much improvement there was.
Yeah, you know what else they do out there in Illinois? They give up a lot of sacks. He gets sacked a lot. So, I mean, there certainly is an opportunity for this Michigan defense to be active, to be aggressive, and to feast early on. And I think, when you're talking about things that you want to see from Michigan in the second half of the season, I mean, anybody that's watched this team through the first 6 weeks, I think it's pretty straightforward. You want to see more from the passing game, and I think with Jack Tuttle at the helm, and we'll get into that when we get into the buy or sell type stuff here in a minute. But when it comes to Jack Tuttle, to me, I think we're all now in agreement that it was supposed to be him from the very beginning. He has the most experience. I think he's the most complete quarterback on the roster. And when he came to the game against Washington, it at least looked like what you would expect out of a Michigan passing attack. It wasn't elite. It wasn't like they weren't lighting up the scoreboard, but getting the ball from point A to point B has looked very difficult through 6 weeks, and Jack Tuttle made it look a little bit easier. Obviously can't make costly mistakes down the stretch, and I do think he's going to get that cleaned up. But overall, it offensively, it starts and ends with the passing game. And this is a horse that we've been beating now for weeks. If Michigan can be efficient through the air, if they can be just okay, if they can be just average through the air, It's going to open up a lot of opportunities, not just for the wide receivers who, to be honest, have been, almost non-existent through 6 weeks. I mean, you could take these guys off the roster. Like when you look at their production, we were comparing it to what we saw with Oregon and Ohio State, right? Like these guys were doing in one game what Michigan wide receivers haven't been able to do through 6. So I think that you really got to get all that going. And once that gets going, it's going to be interesting to see what that does for the offense. Can they sustain drives? Do they start to put more points on the board? Can you put Dominic Savada in a place to, put 3 on the board versus having to punt the ball away? It's just clear to me that everything offensively is going to get better if they can get something out of Jack Tuttle. And then defensively, there's no question about it. They have to get better in the pass game. But overall, for me, I guess I'm taking more of like a 10,000 foot view here. They have to play 4 quarters of football. This Michigan defense in the first half tends to look as dominant as we would have thought in the preseason. And Trent, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times. They go into the half and they come out of the locker room and it's like, I don't know what happened in there. I don't know where that team went. I don't know where that group went. I don't know where the energy went, but they come out of the locker room after halftime and things just look differently with this defense. So to boil it all down, what do I got to see? I got to see a competent passing attack, consistency from the offense, and I got to see a full 4 quarters from the defense. And I think if we can get those 2 things on Saturday, that's going to be a solid road win against a top 25 team. And I think for Michigan, you've had to sit on that loss at Washington now for a long time, right? It's not easy. I mean, ask the people down in Ohio how it feels after a loss going into the bye week, and you just got to sit on that for a little while. They now get the opportunity to turn the tide, which is where I want to ask you, Trent. If Michigan does go out and get a win against Illinois on Saturday, it's weird because it's Illinois, but it's a top 25 team. And I think traditionally, like we're conditioned to look at Illinois as if they're scrubs. They're not. How big of a game is this for Michigan? And if they do get the road win, does it do anything for you beyond just that game? And what I mean by that is, does it change maybe your perception of what's possible in the second half, or would a road win against Illinois in your mind still just be a road win against Illinois?
No, I think that there's definitely merit to beating this Illinois team. I mean, they're 5-1. They actually played Penn State competitively.
Yeah.
Penn State was just the better team
On the road.
On the road at Penn State and in-state college. I think this is a good test for this Michigan team. You're right. Normally, when you think of Michigan, Illinois, you're thinking of Michigan being a top 15 team. Illinois, they've won 3 or 4 games, and it's a pushover game. But it's not that this year. Luke Altmaier is a very good veteran quarterback. Illinois plays really good defense. If Michigan could figure out how to escape this game with a win, I think it builds so much confidence in this team and the fan base. I'm still not going to predict them to beat Oregon and Ohio State, but I think going 4-2 to finish out the season to go 8-4, I think that's very obtainable. And heck, maybe you do get by Oregon or you do get by Ohio State as well. But I think if they can get by Illinois, you see Jack Tuttle play good football, take care of the football, and the defense, they can slow down that offensive attack. I think it bodes well for Michigan going forward.
Yeah, and you said this in your response, if they can escape Illinois, and I think it goes kind of in line with what Marlon is saying here on the Facebook page. He says, it does matter, but it also depends on how we win. I mean, Trent, how much are you putting into that? Like, obviously, a win is a win, and you'll take that any day of the week, and a win obviously keeps Michigan's playoff hopes alive. But, I mean, how does it need to look a certain way for you in order to feel better about it? Because, I mean, if Michigan escapes, right, on the road, if they escape, if there's another second half collapse, yes, it's a win, but there's not a lot of people that are going to be feeling rosy about this Michigan football team. How much of it depends on how they look on Saturday and some of those things we talked about in terms of what we want to see?
Well, you kind of talked about it a little bit ago. You want to see 4 quarters of football. And for me, like not only defensively, but how many games this year does the offense put up 14, 17 points in the first half? And then they're nothing in the second half. They come out and go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, over and over and over. So yeah, if Michigan, if they get a big lead against Illinois, but second half is sloppy like it has been all season long, and Michigan does actually escape with a win, it doesn't make me feel much better. Not much better than how I feel right now about Michigan. But if they can be dominant for 4 quarters of play like Michigan that we've seen the last 3 seasons, I think it gives you optimism.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And CJ, to your point, I mean, I agree. Like, especially in this conference, if you can get a road win in this conference against a top 25 team, like it's a good win, no matter how ugly it might be. But CJ, it's been pretty ugly through 6 weeks, and so I think, in order for people to feel, 8-4, like, how good are you going to feel about 8-4? Like 8-4 doesn't get you in the playoff. It doesn't get you to a conference championship. You go play a bowl game, and we'll see which guys decide to participate in that. But I don't know, 8-4 just really doesn't do it for me. And so I think that really, in order for people to feel good about this season and to look at it like it was a success, is you got to get to at least 9-3 and have yourself in the conversation to be part of the college football playoff. And so I think to that extent, CJ, that's why it's important that it looks good, because it has looked so bad. And when I say look good, I mean, I'm talking numbers that are like very average, like average to below average in college football. Like, it just has to look in order for me to feel okay about the remainder of the season. And that, yeah, Michigan, forget about Oregon and Ohio State. And I think they can split those games, but can Michigan compete against Michigan State? Can they compete against Indiana on the road? Those are the things that I think, that's why this game is so important, because you're coming out of the bye week. You went into it with a lot of issues. Are you going to come out of it looking the same, or are you going to come out of it looking like a football team that knows how to adjust and get better and improve? And a lot of that is going to fall on the coordinators and head coach Stromore.
And to be honest with you, Michigan does have 2 losses now. They might be able to afford to have one more loss. And this is speaking optimistically, but if they could finish 9-3, like you said, they have a fighter's chance of getting into the playoff. But at the same time, you got to have style points. The committee is going to be looking at 9-3 Michigan compared to like a 10-2 Big 12 team potentially. Does that 9-3 Michigan team, how do they compare with that 10-2 team? Is Michigan barely getting by all these games, or are they finally being dominant in the second half of the season? I think that's going to play a factor for Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. And the big brother from the YouTube page, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are no easy games on the, I mean, can you consider Northwestern easy? I mean, they're not a very good football team, but again, if Michigan shows the same issues and same inconsistencies, can you look at that Northwestern game and feel good about the fact that that's going to, a lot of people felt good that Minnesota was going to be a victory, and we were hanging on by a thread there and needed a favorable call on the onside, or I'm sorry, was it offside onside kick to get out of there with a win. So yeah, if you show inconsistencies, especially in the second half, and if you have a passing attack that's non-existent, like, yeah, I wouldn't even count Northwestern as an easy game if Michigan looks.
No. I mean, they just went in and blew out Maryland.
That's what I'm saying. So if it looks the same, are you looking at Northwestern and being like, all right, well, at least that's an easy win? Nothing on the schedule.
No, I don't think there's an easy win left on this schedule with how Michigan has played through 6 games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Trent, let's just do it right now. We're 18 minutes into the show. We're going to get into our buy or sell segment here. There's going to be some over-unders in this, but, this is, again, big week. We know what's at stake in week 7. It's a matter of, keeping playoff hopes alive, showing that Michigan can make the changes necessary to be successful, or if it's more of the same, I think it's going to, spell trouble for the remainder of the schedule, and that things could get very, very rocky down the stretch. So, Trent, I'm going to let you kick us off. Buy or sell? Throw one at me.
Okay, we're going to start with the quarterback play. Purdue just got done putting up 297 yards of passing attack against Illinois. Illinois, this is now the second time this defense has allowed 297 yards through the air. Buy or sell?
You're not asking me if Jack Tuttle throws for 297 yards.
False. Buy or sell that Jack Tuttle throws for 175 or more.
Well, that's
such a terrible number too. 175. Like, you should be able to. Never mind. Just go ahead.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to combine these then. We're gonna have to combine these. You've got it at 175.
Yeah.
All right,
Chris, hold on. Well, if you average your 175,
yeah, I know
you're 115th in the nation.
Okay. Well, let me combine this, because I've got the number higher. I've got over under Jack Tuttle at 201.5 passing yards on Saturday. And the reason I put it at 201.5, Trent, any reason why I picked that particular number?
No, please enlighten me.
That is Jack Tuttle's career high in passing yards. He set it at Indiana. So Jack Tuttle's career high in passing yards is 201.5. And Trent, in line with what you said, just to put that in context, San Diego State averages 201.8 yards through the air. They're ranked number 93 in the country. Okay, so when we're talking about throwing for 200 yards, I get it. It's been bad here. Some people are looking at 200 yards like, whoa, let's just one step at a time here. Let's not ask for the world. Guys, 201 yards is 93rd in the country. You're in the bottom third of the country if you're throwing for 200 yards a game. And for additional context, Illinois is number 44 in pass defense. They give up 197.3 yards per game. So I guess we can combine those. I've got the over-under set at 201.5. Trent, you were talking about 170. I mean, tell me, are you over or under on 201.5?
Man, I can't believe I think that's such a large number, but I do. I think 200 yards is just out of this world for Michigan.
Right. Well, it's crazy.
I mean, I'm going to go under for yours. I think he gets to 175. I know that's just a 25-yard difference, but I see that too. And I'm like, I don't know that Michigan can throw for 200 yards. So I think he can get to 175, but I think that I'll touch on this later, but Illinois' weakness is stopping the run. And I think Michigan's going to really try to utilize that. I think Tuttle does hit some deep shots to help him get his numbers up, but I'm not cracking that 200.
What happens if we went out, huh?
It is so weird. Just the way you said that. Like, I look at that number 2 right there and it just terrifies me. And then we want to ask questions about why a guy like Bryce Underwood isn't interested in coming to Michigan. We're over here freaking out about 200 yards through the air.
Bryce Underwood's like, guys, there's 93 teams that average 200 yards.
Yeah, not good. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Oh, geez. I don't even know that I would take the over on 100. No, I'm going under on both. I think if we can get to 150, like we've talked about, as being like a magic, like, okay, things
That's
are
so sad.
That is so sad. That is
150. That's our number. That's our key number for Michigan, 150.
Yes. And CJ, there's certainly a part of that. I mean, JJ not averaging 200 yards a game last year. You know, you had Blake Corum, you had an NFL offensive line, you had Donovan Edwards making big plays, and, you know, you really didn't need that much out of it. But the problem is when you're not getting that level of productivity out of the offense this year, and there is no second gear, there is no plan B, it's still a one-dimensional offense type thing. That's where it becomes a problem. So, yeah, man, I'm going to take the under on the 200, 201.5, and I'm also going to take the under on 175.5. Give me 150 through the air. Let's start somewhere, reasonable, and then we'll see where we can go from there. All right, I guess that was yours. We'll throw it back to me here. I know this is buy or sell, but like I said, I'm mixing in some over-unders here. So, Trent, over-under, Amarion Walker, 2.5 targets. 2.5 targets on Saturday.
Okay, then we're combining it because I have
Do it again.
I have buy or sell that Amarion Walker catches 3 passes.
Oh, that actually works really well. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, targets.
All right.
Whatever.
So you go first, and then I'll answer. So 2.5 targets on Saturday. Are you taking the over or the under for Amarion Walker?
I'm going to go over on the 2.5 targets, and I think he gets 3 catches. I think Sherrone Moore said this week that his role is growing every week in this Michigan offense. You saw him out there 2 weeks ago, and he made a crucial 22-yard catch. Michigan's receivers have been not very good. Their leading receiver, Samaje Morgan, was 78 yards. They need somebody to get into the game and stretch a defense. Use his size. He's 6'3". Like, use that physical. He's an athletic freak. Use it. And I think that maybe Jack Tuttle and Walker could have a little bit of chemistry. Put him out on the field and utilize him.
I'm going to take the over on the 2.5 targets. I'm going to take the under on the 3 receptions. I've just got to see it to believe it. But, Jack Tuttle's career high through the air in a single pass is 22 yards, and that came courtesy of a connection with Amarion Walker. And Sherrone Moore talked about it this week. He said that the plan is for Amarian Walker to continue to work his way more and more into this offense. And I mean, at the end of it, dude, I just don't understand. If you're Amarian Walker, why do you come back here if you're not going to play in this offense? If you're not, and I get it. Like if Samaj Morgan was lighting it up, if Tyler Morris was lighting it up, if you had, Frederick Moore was going out there and just killing it, like I would understand. Maybe Amarian Walker is the low man on the totem pole, but that's not happening. They are desperately looking for a playmaker at that position. This guy looks like he could be it. I got to see it though first. So I will take what did I say on the 2.5? I think I'm going
the over on that.
to take the over on the 2.5, but I'm going to take the under on 3 receptions.
See, my gripe though with that is I think Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris are probably your top 2 options. Keep them on the field. My problem is how Michigan wants to put in Peyton O'Leary and CJ Charleston and these other guys.
Some Peyton O'Leary shade just from off the top rope. My goodness.
Like you put those guys in to be blockers. They're not really even running routes. They're not trying to go out there and catch passes. So Michigan's already showing their hand when you put those 2 guys in the game. Why don't you throw Amarian Walker out there with Samaj Morgan and Colson Loveland and Tyler Morris? Somebody in that group is going to create separation and throw them the football.
Yeah, I agree. And I think honestly, you might see I don't know. There is a growing chorus of people that want to see more from Amarian Walker. And I think if we see him continue to be used in limited capacity like he has, and you target him maybe one time, I just think people are really going to start to question, like, what's going on there? Because it looked good in the one connection. Like, what is it we're missing? What is it we're not seeing there? And to be honest, we really just haven't gotten an explanation on that. It's more of, we're going to try to work him in. So Trent, I think when we combine these things, we're muddying the waters a little bit, but I believe this one is back to you. I'll throw it back to you.
All right. Illinois has given up 19 sacks this season. They are ranked 122nd in all of college football. Buy or sell that Michigan gets to Altmaier 3 times or more on Saturday.
I'm going to buy it. And I said that earlier in the show. Illinois gives up a lot of sacks, and I think this defense, look, I mean, once again, second half collapse. You allow Washington to outscore you. You had to sit on that loss for 2 weeks. I think that the defense is going, they've heard the narrative. Wink Martindale's heard the narrative. The guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, who, by the way, has just been elevated to captain. It's clear to me that some things took place in Schembechler Hall. I mean, you don't make a move like that unless you're, maybe this is a different topic, but I feel like that move to elevate Josiah Stewart, I know he was an alternate captain, but to make him like a legit team captain, I think that was sending a message to this defense. We need some leaders on the defensive side of the ball. We need some people to stand up, step up. I think that we're going to see this defense play with their hair on fire. I think they get to Altmaier quite a bit, so I will buy that.
Yeah, I mean, I know Luke Altmaier is a veteran quarterback. He can obviously get rid of the football, but he has been sacked 19 times this season, which means the Illinois offensive line is not holding up their end of the bargain. The Michigan defensive line is just as good as anybody out there, and it sounds like everybody's going to be fully healthy. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Derek Moore will be back, Josiah Stewart. Then you have TJ Guy and Rayshawn Benny coming in to rotate. Like, this Michigan defensive line, I think, should have a very nice day against Illinois, and I think 3 sacks is more than doable.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, let's be real. When Mason Graham is there anybody that can stop Mason Graham in college football? No. I don't think so. He is
his motor doesn't stop.
Correct. I mean, he is a dominant force, and when he wants to be, he is unstoppable. And I just think that we're going to see that kind of effort from this Michigan defense. These guys, a lot of the people in the fan base have written them off. A lot of people nationally have written them off. I mean, when you talk, this is the reigning national champions. Nobody's talking about Michigan being a player in the college football playoff. Nobody's talking about Michigan as a legit competitor in this conference. I think these guys know that. And the guys who chose to come back, the guys who are still sort of trying to carry on that tradition that was built over the last 3 years, I think they're going to take it personally. And it's not like this is a scrub game on the road in a sleepy afternoon. This is a top 25 matchup with a team that a lot of people think can beat you. And so I think we're going to see some productivity out of this defense, particularly with the front four there. Trent, I believe it is back to me. Let's go back to Jack Tuttle. I'm going to ask you this. Buy or sell, Jack Tuttle will set new career highs in attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, and his longest completion on Saturday. Again, career highs at Michigan. He will set new career. And just let me put it in perspective for you. Career high, they all came against Washington. 2 weeks ago. His career high in attempts is 18. His career high in completions is 10. Career high in yards through the air, 98. His career high in touchdowns, 1. And his career long on a reception is 22 yards. So buy or sell, Jack Tuttle will set new career highs in all of those on Saturday.
I lean towards buying it, but like 22 yards, we're talking about he's going to have to complete somewhat of a deep shot. We really haven't seen that this year. I know that he completed one to Marion Walker, but I mean, I definitely lean towards buying that. I think that Michigan wants to get Tuttle throwing the ball, and 98 yards. If he doesn't throw for 98 yards, Michigan's probably not winning the game.
Dude, look at it. Some people are shouting sell. So we got another sell here. Sell. Michigan hates fun. Guys, we're talking about 10 completions, 98 yards, 1 touchdown, 18 attempts, and a 22-yard completion through the air or more. I mean, this right here, the reaction from the fan base, this is the indictment on the passing game. We're talking about 98 yards and 1 touchdown through the air, and people are like, sell it. You are out of your mind. No, Trent, I'm going to hammer the buy. Jack Tuttle is going to set career highs in 5 categories this weekend. He is going to go over 18 attempts. He is going to go over 10 completions. He's going to go over 98 yards. I think he's going to throw more than 1 touchdown, and I do think he has a long completion. Maybe it's going to come courtesy of Colston Loveland, although I would like to see it go to a wide receiver. But I think Jack Tuttle is going to have a productive Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not that big in numbers. Like I said, 22 yards is the only thing I'm like, does he get 20? Does he complete something longer than 22 yards? But if it's not, especially the 98, if he does not throw for over 98 yards, I think Michigan is in a lot of trouble. Unless they run for 400 yards, then obviously you don't have to throw the ball probably 1 time in the game. Honestly,
that might be the only thing that does it. Michigan would have to run for more than 400 yards in order for that to be okay. I don't even know that would be okay. Is there any? I don't think there's any scenario where if Jack Tuttle plays the entire game and throws for less than 100 yards, this fan base.
Yeah, but what if Michigan first play 75-yard touchdown run? Next drive, they hammer 80 yards down the field on the ground. Why would you stop?
You know what that's going to mean? That's going to mean, okay, Michigan's putting points on the board. They're building a lead. Now work on the damn passing game and get that figured out. We know Michigan can run the ball. Under no circumstances can you continue. Kurt Campbell said this, and Kurt Campbell's taking a lot of heat, but he understands that you cannot continue to win in this league if you don't have a balanced attack, if you don't play complementary football. And so I would love it if Michigan came out of the gate, broke off some long runs, went up 21-0, 21-3, and then you turn to Jack Tuttle and you say, all right, let's go to work. Let's do something through the air. Let's get these guys involved. Let's look for Samaj Morgan, not on a bubble screen, not on a jet sweep. Get him down the field. Get Tyler Morris down the field. Get a Marion Walker down the field, and let's get something going. Because if you can get a win on the road against Illinois and you can put up some yards and some explosive plays through the air, now all of a sudden you're feeling a hell of a lot better about Michigan State. You're feeling better about Indiana. You're feeling better about Oregon, and you're giving yourself a chance to compete late.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Chris, back to me. Luke Altmaier has thrown 14 touchdowns to 1 interception. Does he throw at least 1 pick on Saturday against Michigan?
Such a hard thing to predict. I mean, I don't think they're going to try to test Will Johnson too much, and I think it really comes down to how effective is a guy like Jair Hill going to be, how effective is the secondary going to be overall. What are we going to see from a guy like Zeke Berry? Is it going to be the Zeke Berry that, you know, looks like he can play elite football at times, or is it going to be the Zeke Berry that looks like sometimes he's confused and doesn't know where he should be on the field? I'm going to say, hold on a second. Let me just check real quick here. Give me a second. Can you play some elevator music 1 second? I want to check something real quick here. It's going to take me like 2 seconds.
Your computer freezes up and
no. That's not what it is. Hold on 1 second.
Well, I do want to note that Illinois is going to be without their starting running back on Saturday. He's already rolled out. They're rolling in with their backup. I don't know how well their run game is going to be. Illinois already enjoys throwing the football. I think you're going to see Luke Altmaier throwing it more. Also, 19 sacks. He's pressured a lot. Michigan's defensive line could force him into duress. Does he throw an errant pass like that? Those are all the variables you got to look at.
Well, it's going to be 74 and sunny. I was trying to check the weather for Champaign this weekend. Wanted to see if there were maybe going to be some elements, something that Altmaier had to deal with outside of the front four, which I think is going to be enough on its own. I'm going to say no. I think he takes care of the ball. I don't think he throws in. I think it's more likely we see a fumble from Illinois than an interception. I don't think he's going to want to try to play with Will Johnson too much. I think he's going to go elsewhere with the ball. I think they're going to try. I mean, hell, they know that some of Michigan's best offense is Will Johnson taking the pick six the other way. And so I think they're going to do everything they can to avoid that, play safe football, good, solid football. So for that reason, I'm going to say no, Michigan does not get an interception on Saturday.
I guess what I'm banking on is Michigan has recorded at least one interception in every game outside of Texas. USC, they got to Miller Moss. He threw a bad pass. Will Rogers last weekend. It just seems like the Michigan defensive line can really penetrate, maybe get Luke Altmaier on his back a couple of times, get him on his heels, make a bad throw, and then Will Johnson or Jair Hill, somebody comes up with a play. I could see one coming out of the game.
Let it be known, Trent Knoop wants to see more penetration this weekend from the Wolverines. Don't we all? Buy or sell, Trent, Colston Loveland, and we all know he's the runaway leader in yards and receptions this far for the Wolverines. Colston Loveland once again leads Michigan in receptions and yards on Saturday. Buy or sell?
Yeah, that's like the best buy you could get. I think that's so easy. I believe he's almost fully healthy, if not fully healthy. I think you see him out there majority of the time. He's had a great connection with Davis Warren. Alex Orji looked his way when he did throw the football. So you got to think that Jack Tuttle is somebody that's going to be a more competent passer, is going to really look toward Colston Loveland.
Yeah, I agree that is the safe bet and the safe buy. I am going to sell it, and I'm going to sell it because I do think that they are going to try and make a legitimate effort to get the wide receivers involved. I think Colston Loveland is going to get his. I think he's going to have receptions. I think he's going to have yards. Hell, he's probably going to have a touchdown on Saturday. But I think they're really going to try to get these wide receivers involved. Trent, we've talked about this. It doesn't matter what these guys say in front of the cameras and in front of the microphones and at the podium. There's no way in hell that this wide receiver core is happy with what the production has been like through 6 weeks. I think they went into the bye week. You've got a healthy Jack Tuttle. You work on the passing game. I think we're going to see some of these other wide receivers get involved. And for that reason, I don't think Colston Loveland will lead in receptions and yards on Saturday. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually think that's a good thing. Let me ask you this, Trent, and I get it. Yeah, Colston Loveland, I mean, when he's on the field, like that's going to be every quarterback's favorite target. Do you think it actually is better for Michigan if he is not the leading receiver on Saturday?
I think that's a loaded question. Like, how does the passing attack look?
I mean, if you were going to attack it, would you continue to go to that well and just, tap into that as much as you possibly can? Or would you rather spread it out and get these other guys some love?
I mean, sure, you'd rather spread it around, but that's also thinking that Michigan's throwing for 250 yards, but they're not. Like, Michigan's throwing for under 100 yards in most of their games that they've played. So, of course, you're going to look at your most talented player and try to get him the football. Heck, even if they throw for 150 yards, you got to think that 60 of it might be going to Colston Loveland. Does that mean another player breaks out, or do you have multiple players catching 20 yards? I mean, I feel like there's so many variables with that, but at the end of the day, Colston Loveland is by far and away the most talented pass catcher on the team. And I think if Illinois leaves him man coverage, one-on-ones, you got to exploit that and throw it his way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, right? How does Illinois choose to defend him? I mean, if he's open, you're not just going to not throw him the ball for the sake of trying to get other people involved. So, yeah, that's a good point. I just think I do think they are going to be keyed in on Colston Loveland. They've watched film. They know what Michigan likes to do through the air, and it's look for number 18 in any way that you can. I think Illinois is going to try to do everything they can to take it away. I think it's going to open up some opportunities for some other guys, and I think we finally see a Michigan wide receiver have a solid afternoon. I pray to God that's what we see. I mean, could you imagine?
It would be nice. It would be nice.
A wide receiver get, 85, 90 yards through the air, maybe get a touchdown or two. You see an offense that passes for 200 yards.
Running if he does that.
In my mind.
All right, Chris. So my last one, Illinois allows on average 149 yards on the ground to the opposition. Does Michigan run for 200 yards on Saturday?
I think so. And we've talked about this. Illinois just does not have a great rushing defense. That's obviously what Michigan loves to do. And we said it earlier in the week, or at least I know I talked about it. Donovan Edwards gets a lot of shit for not being as good as a lot of people thought he was going to be, but he seems like he's starting to find his groove a little bit. Khalil Mullings, obviously a solid runner, hard to bring down. I think that tandem of Mullings and Edwards is going to get to 200 yards on Saturday, so I will buy that.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Michigan wants to throw the ball more or not. Their offensive identity is running the football. And you have two more than capable running backs in Khalil Mulling and Donovan Edwards. You got to ride the hot hand. Like 2 weeks ago, Donovan Edwards had the hot hand and you rode him. But it's been Khalil Mulling's most of the season. I think one of those guys get hot, if not both of them. And I think Michigan, put it this way, if Michigan doesn't run for 200 yards, I don't know that Michigan wins the game. I think Michigan, if they run for 200 yards, they're controlling the time of possession. They're moving the football. They're probably sustaining drives. I think if Michigan can run for 200 yards, it's a win.
Let me ask you this, because this really just dawned on me. I didn't think much about it. We saw, obviously, Jack Tuttle came in and replaced Alex Orji in the Washington game, and then it was Tuttle from there on out. Do we see any Alex Orji on Saturday in a running capacity, going back to what we were accustomed to with him before?
Well, Sharon Moore was kind of asked the same question about who's going to be the backup, and he didn't really confirm who the backup was, but he did say that Alex Orji would still have a role in the team, bring him in, run the football. So I think so. I think you'll still see him come in and like week 1, week 2, and then even last year where you see him come in and he runs it.
He can give you an extra 30 or 40 yards on the ground, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Michigan gets to 200. We'll buy that. Okay, this is my last one, Trent, and I believe you're done, correct?
Yes.
All right, final buy or sell of the afternoon. Trent, buy or sell, Michigan outscores Illinois in the second half. And for context here, Michigan has been outscored in the second half of the last 4 games. Against Arkansas State, they were outscored 15-7. Against USC, it was 21-13. Against Minnesota, it was 21-6. And against Washington, it was 13-7. Trent, combined over the last 4 games, Michigan has been outscored 70-33 in the second half of the last 4 games. Does Michigan win the second half? Do they outscore Illinois?
Chris, I'm proud of you. You actually put some thought into a question.
I did. And I can before you answer that, let me just tell you how bad Michigan's been in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, Michigan has been outscored 56-17 in the fourth quarter over the last 4 games. That is a disastrous recipe. So I ask you again, Trent, 56-17 in the fourth quarter, 70-33 overall in the second half. Does Michigan change the tide? Do they win the second half?
This is probably being actually optimistic for once. I'm going to buy it. I think Michigan, the bye week came at a good time. I think they did some soul searching. I think the coaches probably addressed areas that needed addressed. And I know that the second half was one of them. We've talked about it ad nauseum, how badly and poor Michigan looks in the second half. A lot of times they enter halftime with a lead. And as you've just brought up the scores, they leave. It's just a different team when they come out of the tunnel. But I think the bye week came at a good time. I think Jack Tuttle does make a big difference on this offense. And I just think Michigan plays more well-rounded. And I think you see at least 3 quarters of good football, if not 4. So I will buy it.
Playoffs?
There you have it. Trent thinks Michigan is going to the playoffs. He thinks they're going to turn the tide, finally put together 4 quarters of football. I agree, Trent. I mean, look, at some point in time, if you're this Michigan defense, you've got to take that shit personally. You've got to find a way to win the second half. You cannot continue to allow teams like Arkansas State and Minnesota to crawl back into it in the second half, put up 21 points on you in the fourth quarter. That is just something that cannot continue. And out of all the things that they talked about in Schembechler during this bye week, I got to believe that second half was a big part of that discussion and looking at some of those numbers. So I'm going to buy it if for no other reason, Trent, than just law of averages. They are not not going to go a fifth straight game being outscored in the second half. I think Michigan clamps down and they put it to Illinois for a full 4 quarters. And then we'll see what it looks like on the field. We'll see what the score looks like. We'll see what it looks like if they can play a full game. And I guess that's where we're going to pivot to next, Trent. We're going to find out exactly, you think Michigan's going to play 4 quarters against a top 25 team on the road. What exactly does that look like, Trent? Let's get into our predictions. Tell me how you see this one playing out on Saturday.
Well, like I've talked about already, I think that Jack Tuttle is going to make a big difference in this Michigan passing game. I
just want to point out, by big difference, you're saying like 150 yards through the air.
175, I predicted. 175. That is a big difference.
Woo!
I think you're going to see a competent passing attack. But the biggest thing is making those linebackers and safeties, they got to respect it, because then the Michigan run offense can just really take off. Kalel Mullings, Donovan Edwards, Alex Orji, if he comes in the game, you give them a little bit of a box to get to go. And I think the Michigan defense is better, but I'm still not sold that Illinois, you're gonna shut them down. I think that Luke Altmaier is a good quarterback. I think they have 2 really good receivers. I'm not sold that Jair Hill and Zeke Berry have just gotten worldly better after the bye week. I think you still see breakdowns, but at the end of the day, I think Michigan gets a win. I see them winning 31-21, giving up 3 touchdowns. But I think overall, you see a much more improved Michigan team.
I like it. And I think the fans will like it if that's how it turns out. Trent, you've got a 10-point win, right? You said 31-21. Shem from the Facebook page, he says 27-24 Michigan. I feel like a lot of people have been settling on 27 week in and week out. That seems to be like the ceiling for this Michigan offense. They get to 27 or 28, and that's about where we're going to land. And Rico from the Facebook page, I mean, I don't know what we're doing here. He says Michigan needs Viagra to satisfy the fans. And then he follows it up with saying that we are busting early in games. Got to finish strong. So I'll just let those stand on their own. Trent, yeah, this is something that we've talked about, what we need to see, what we want to see from this Michigan football team. I do agree. I do think that it's going to be better. I do think we're going to see 4 quarters of solid defense. I do think Jack Tuttle is going to provide a much needed element to this offense where the passing attack is just something that, can be very mediocre. Sounds like a bad word, but it's really not when you've been terrible. If you go from terrible to mediocre, that's an improvement. And I feel like that's what we're going to see from Michigan through the air. Don't think it's going to be anywhere near elite, but if they can get 150, hell, if they can get 175, Trent, I think it's going to spell good things for the Michigan Wolverines. But once again, Illinois is no slouch. This team is 5-1. They did go into Happy Valley and they took Penn State to the limit. And I do think Michigan is going to be challenged on that on Saturday because of that. And I do think the crowd over there in Champaign, regardless of what you think about the environment, I think they're going to be amped up for this game. Anytime the Wolverines come to town and it's a top 25 matchup, and you're a team like Illinois, I mean, how many times do you get to see something like this if you're an Illinois fan in your own building? How many games do you get like this? Top 25 matchup with the reigning national champions. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for the Wolverines. And for that reason, I've got it. Michigan 20, Illinois 17. I think it's a 3-point win. And Trent, if it plays out, look, Scott from the Facebook page, he's also got a 3-point win for Michigan. He's got 17-14. I mean, how are we feeling? How are we feeling about a 3-point win over Illinois on the road? Does 2017 scare you? Does it make you feel bad inside?
Again, I think it depends on how it looks. Does Michigan look really good in the first half and then they fall apart in the second half?
Yeah.
Illinois makes a comeback but ends up losing? Or does Michigan, or is it just a competitive game from first quarter to fourth quarter? Does Michigan look better in the second half than they do in the first half? I just think there's so many variables.
Let me ask you this. Would you take 31-20? Hell, would you take 31-10 and 400 yards rushing over 20-17 and 250 yards through the air? Which would you prefer?
What was the second score?
20-17. 3-point win, but you get 250 yards through the air out of Tuttle, or you get a 10+ point win and you get 400 yards on the ground.
I want to see the 400 yards on the ground, 10-point win. I think it's a dominant win. If Michigan wins by 10 and you impose your will in the trenches, you run for 400 yards.
We've seen it. We've seen that movie. We know
Hey, it worked. It works.
Yeah. Well, does it though? Does it? I mean, I'm asking seriously. Does it? Did it work against Texas?
No, they didn't run the ball good against Texas.
They couldn't run the ball. They were getting their ass kicked early. Could not run the ball against Texas.
I'm just saying, if they can impose their will and run for 400 yards and you walk out with a 10-point win, that's a dominant win. That is a dominant win.
Give me a 1-point win on the road with 300 passing yards. I'll take it all day long. Just show me that something else.
And then on the post game, you'll be complaining about how they can't run the ball.
I won't be. I know Michigan can run the ball. I've seen it. I know Khalil Mullings is great. I'm fine if they have an off day. Show me that you can do it. I hope Illinois stacks the box and Michigan can't run the damn ball at all. And it's got to be, you know what Jack Tuttle's career high is? Where is it? Let me pull it up here. I think it's
90 yards, right?
No. I'm talking about his time with Indiana.
Okay.
His career high for attempts. It's like 56 or 58. This guy has been in situations where he's had to throw the ball a lot. I hope Illinois stacks
52.
him up. 52. Okay,
dude, this guy was 28 for 52 for 188 yards and 2 interceptions against Michigan State in 2021.
Yeah, but that was playing with a shitty Indiana.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Listen, Uncle Jack is going to light it up. He's got to light it up on Saturday. I want to see.
You don't want to see him throwing 50 passes. You do not want to see that.
Trent, I think I do. I'll be sitting on the couch at home, drinking a Manmosa, watching Jack Tuttle sling it all over the field in Champaign. Give that to me. Get up early. To your point, have a couple long touchdown runs early, and then spend the next 3 quarters just slinging the ball all over the field on the Illinois defense. And we know they give up yards through the air. Why not let it happen? Why not explore it? That's where I'm at. Give me. Hey, look, you're acting like he left. He's always here, CJ. He's always been here. He's always going to be here. I don't know.
Jack Tuttle, while he's the best option on this team, is not elite enough where you want him throwing it for 40 plus times in a game to try to win you a game. Like, you've got to, your run game is what.
No, listen, that's a different scenario. If you're saying he's doing it because Michigan needs it to try and win.
Well, they only win by 3 points and him throwing 250 yards. I'm assuming they need him to win the game, right?
Maybe not. I don't know. You'd have to see how it plays out. Just give me 50 pass attempts. Is that too much to ask?
Oh my gosh. Hey, Chris, one more thing.
What is it? Oh my God. Look, you see this guy? Listen, for you Lions fans out there, I'm sorry. This is one of the worst. In addition to being a professional bowler, Trent is also a Minnesota Vikings fan. We'll try to work on him. We'll try to get him over to the good side with the Lions. But first, we got to get through Illinois this weekend. Michigan taking on the Fighting Illini, top 25 matchup on the road. We'll be back Saturday after the game to talk about it live. Join us Saturday for the post game. Until then, appreciate y'all.